What's different this time, Alex? It feels like there's always a little scare with suppliers somewhere when it comes to Apple.
I think we've seen in the past there have been delays to particular sort of iterations of the iPhone. So I think in the last one, the iPhone 7, one of the colours was in slightly short supply. And then there were problems with the watch, which is, of course, not their biggest product. What we're seeing here is really the flagship product of the new product lineup, the iPhone 10. That's enduring some difficulties. And it starts to point at possibly the suggestion that there are cracks appearing in Apple's very successful supply chain model.
Yeah, they've been trying to take more and more things in-house. Is that part of the problem, or is that nothing to do with it?
I don't think it is really to do with that. It's the thing is here that we've seen in mobile phones and smartphones that it's very hard now to come up with a really blockbuster innovation. The kind of advances are iterative, a little step here, a little step there. Touch ID was a very big one a few years ago. Then we had Force Touch, the ability to push the phone harder to get different actions. And so this Face ID and the OLED screens, the two big headline advances, innovations in the new iPhone, they were possibly pushing the boundaries a little bit too far, and their suppliers were not quite up to scratch yet. Not quite able to deliver on these components.
Interesting. There's also the idea that Apple mightn't be fully as good at predicting how much demand there will be for something like the 10, right? We know there wasn't as much demand for the 8 as Apple was hoping for, but that could bode well or bode ill for the 10.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to pass the tea leaves on this one because, we know that the iPhone 8, it seems, has not been the demand has not been as great as perhaps some people might have expected, but that also suggests that there's pent-up demand for the iPhone 10. I think one of the most telling numbers is the one we saw last week from AT&T. They said that the upgrade rate was 900,000 customers fewer than the year before. So if the upgrade rate is lower, if they're not going for an iPhone, they might have been going for something else. That suggests they are waiting for this iPhone 10. The big question now is whether Apple's able to meet that demand with the supply, whether it's going to carry on over into the first calendar quarter of next year and even the second.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say people may not be as desperate for their new iPhone. They may still want one, but they might be quite happy to wait a month or two or three. So we may not see the same kinds of results as we did before. If Apple does surprise and there is more demand, do we see a big pop in the shares?
I mean, we will probably not. At the moment, Apple investors, I think, are very wary. They're a little bit tetchy. The stock is at record highs. Any indication of any sort of weakness, people are getting out of the stock, profit taking. If, though, there are massive queues on launch day, that could suggest that the brand really is strong. But we won't really know until Apple makes its predictions for the next quarter on November the 2nd. November the 2nd is when they have their earnings next week. November the 3rd is when the iPhone 10 goes on sale. So those are two crucial days for Apple.